Often continuously.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome. My name is Hilda Cruz. I am the Regional Faith Organizer in the Inland Empire. I am with Interfaith Movement for Human Integrity, an organization made up of various faith traditions who believe that all people are sacred across bars and borders. And I am very joyful that we can all gather today. If you haven't already, please put your name and congregation in the chat box. In this way, we know who is in here at this moment gathering today. I would also like to invite you to choose speaker view on your Zoom screen at the upper right-hand corner for a better experience. If you have any technical difficulties, please write it on the chat box and we will try to help you. We are in the midst of season of holy days. We had Buddha's week. Next week, Muslims begin Ramadan. These are many celebrations in the midst of social distancing. And so today, I am most grateful that we can connect via Zoom and Facebook to pray together and send each other blessings. We had initially planned for this prayer service to take place in the city of Adelanto, at the end of a pilgrimage that was going to begin from Oakland to Adelanto, stopping at 3 prisons that are being proposed to be converted into immigration centers. 2 of them currently are immigration detention facilities. Today also, two vigils come together. Usually there's a San Francisco vigil that gathers on a Friday like today and prays in front of the ICE office. And they're joining today with us when we should have been praying in front of the Adelanto immigration facility. This Holy Friday marks that 6th anniversary of the vigil that usually takes place in the city of Adelanto. It is today on Holy Friday that 6 years ago, many of us gathered for the first time to pray for those who were incarcerated due to an economy that is built on punishing and suffering. We have prayed many times at this facility, as it is one of the largest immigrant detention centers, where the GEO Corporation makes a profit from incarcerating asylum seekers and other immigrants. Adelanto is notorious for patterns of medical neglect that has led to 8 deaths in recent years. It is our hope that through this prayer service, we will lift up the experience of people in incarceration and immigration detention, with a focus on those who are not experiencing freedom and liberation, and those most at risk during this pandemic. I have heard recently about the current hunger strike, objecting to the overcrowding and health risks as new detainees are transferred to a facility where there is already lack of hygiene products, lack of nutrition, and also medical care. We are connecting these 4 themes you see on your screen: the faces and lives behind bars, the theme to shut out and lock in, barriers to freedom, and path to freedom. These 4 themes can connect to our faith traditions during this interfaith holy season. We have invited several faith leaders from various traditions to share their theological reflections with us. They will share a reflection or ritual from their faith tradition as we recall the lived experiences of people, especially those who have been directly impacted. Let's keep in our minds and in our hearts and in our prayers the more than 1,940 persons inside the Adelanto detention facility today, and also the many other lives that are incarcerated in the detention centers in Mesa Verde, in Otay Mesa, in Calexico, in Yuba. We also keep in our hearts those that are in jails, in the 35 prisons across California, in the hope that together we will be called collectively to the action of true liberation. Again, welcome. We're so happy that you can join us. Deb?
Good morning, everyone. Indeed, I do want to welcome all of you, those of you who for the first time might be joining one of our vigils or events, and those of you who've been to many. It's wonderful to be together in this time. It's quite different from what we originally planned in terms of being in Adelanto or in front of the ice building in San Francisco, but I heard that it was 43 degrees and raining in Adelanto, so not a bad thing that we're together in this way. I'm very honored by the speakers who have taken time today to be part of our vigil, faith leaders and truth tellers who are joining us today to make this a very special experience for us all. I'd like to introduce Bishop Minerva Carcaño. She is the Episcopal leader for the California-Nevada Annual Conference of the United Methodist Church. She was born in Texas and has the distinction of being the first Hispanic woman to be elected to be a bishop in the United Methodist Church, and is the chair of the United Methodist Church National Immigration Task Force. She has been a tireless and longtime vocal advocate for immigrant rights across the country. And she's been part of this long journey, this long movement for immigrant justice from Washington, D.C. to San Diego. It's in San Diego over a year ago where many of us marched with her as she and dozens were arrested in a religious action as they tried to welcome the migrant caravan at the US-Mexico border. So thank you, Bishop Carcaño, for being with us today. Oh, check your mute. You might still be on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much. Good morning, friends. It's good to be together as people of faith to remember the state of our world and pray for our world in the midst of COVID-19. Today, we especially want to remember and pray for our immigrant brothers and sisters who face some very specific and particular circumstances. We want to remember the asylum seekers who have been like beggars at the gate, forced to wait for months and months and months for their asylum process, and are now being told that the gate of our US southern border has been closed to them. Schools have also been closed for all of our children. But immigrant children suffer in a particular way. Immigrant children and those who are poor, children from poor families, suffer from the closing of schools because they were depending on getting meals while at school. Immigrant children suffer in the fact that they have absolutely no safety net. Fear forces their parents, their mothers and their fathers to not ask for any aid because they're concerned about the very punitive public charge laws. We also remember that there are very restrictive eligibility requirements for undocumented immigrants to receive that obtaining the COVID-19 testing through Medicaid. We forget that many of these immigrants are on the front lines too, caring for essential work for our communities, like picking crops and taking care of our elderly, while the rest of us shelter in place at our homes. What's going to happen if no one cares for the health of these immigrants? But nowhere do we see the full impact of injustice in this time of pandemic illness than we see it in for-profit detention centers. Immigrants are being detained with no consideration for their health in terms of COVID-19. They are living in detention centers that are full to capacity. There's no place for social distancing. Their access to their families has been limited, if not completely stopped, in some detention centers. Many of them, many of them have underlying health conditions as well. They are out of sight and out of mind. These immigrants held in detention, forced to alone face COVID-19 like sheep to the slaughter. These brothers and sisters need to be released to their families. It's what's best for them, and it is what is best for society. Won't you pray with me? God of the immigrant, who calls us to welcome the immigrant, to extend mercy and justice to them, to receive them as members of our communities as full citizens, and to love them. Forgive our complacency and our apathy toward them. Above all, forgive the injustices we inflict upon them. Free us from our sin that we may serve them in your spirit. On this day, Creator God, be with immigrants everywhere, with special care for those who sit in prisons and detention centers. Bless them with your liberating love. Amen. Francisco Herrera will once again bless us with a song.
We come together, one single heart. We are one. We are one. We join our hands now, miles apart. Tú y yo, we are one. Hoy rescatamos esta verdad. Tú y yo, we are one, and we can see far away, across the oceans and the space. Tú y yo, we are one. We are one. En la mañana, un corazón, tú y yo, we are one. Y por la noche, semilla y flor, tú y yo, we are one. The borders vanish, the walls dissolve, tú y yo, we are one. Y somos muchos en amor, trabajando en unión, tú y yo, we are one, we are one. We join in prayer, one single heart, tú y yo, we are one. We join in action, eyes on the prize, tú y yo, we are one. Hoy nos unimos para cantar, tú y yo, we are one. And we're calling in and the healing in the stillness of the night. And we're caring for the land, and we're giving each other a hand. Tuyo, we are one. 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 We are one.
Thank you so much, Francisco Herrera, and thank you, Bishop Carcaño, as well. Our next speaker is Reverend Duncan Ryuken Williams, who was born in Tokyo and is a professor of East Asian religion and director of the Center for Japanese Religions and Culture at the University of Southern California in Los Angeles. He's also a Buddhist priest in the Soto Zen tradition and has just written a great book, American Sutra, A Story of Faith and Freedom in the Second World War, about the powerful and unique experience of Japanese American Buddhists being doubly criminalized as racial and religious minorities, and the role of their faith to sustain them as they were incarcerated in America's prison camps during World War II. Reverend Williams is a core member of the Suru for Solidarity organization, who have in the last year brought together the experience of the Japanese American community and those currently imprisoned through paper crane folding activities and protests across the country. Reverend Williams has played a key role in engaging Buddhist faith leaders to take part in prayer, ritual, and protests at detention camps across the country. Thank you, Reverend Duncan Williams.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Reverend Deborah. In the Japanese Buddhist tradition, this week in April is when we celebrate Hanamatsuri, or the Buddha's birthday. And although our religion's founder may no longer be present, every year we Buddhists focus on the meaning of the birth of our faith in a life marked by the alleviation of suffering, a pathway to liberation. So in the spirit of making present that which is absent, for this morning, I would like to share a brief memorial service to recall those who have gone before us. A typical Buddhist memorial service or remembrance ceremony consists of three parts: the recitation of a sutra or a teaching text, a dedication verse that recalls to whom any merit from the sutra recitation is to be dedicated, and the utterance of those names. This morning's text is something I wrote a few days ago in the form of a Buddhist scripture titled Solidarity Sutra, both an acknowledgement of our times with the COVID-19 situation, as well as an appreciation of the work of the Japanese American organization Suru for Solidarity, a group that has been connecting the exclusions based on race and religion that marked the forced removal and mass incarceration of 125,000 persons of Japanese ancestry during World War II, and what's happening in our current times with travel bans and border walls. Founded by World War II camp survivors and their descendants, it is a group that has been folding tens of thousands of paper tsuru, Japanese for cranes, and placing them at border patrol and ICE detention facilities to call attention to the interlinked histories between the World War II Japanese American experiences of indefinite incarceration, deportation, and family separation with what is happening today. Solidarity Sutra. Thus have we heard. At a time when physical distancing is required, yet social solidarity is so needed, the great physician Buddha offers medicine to alleviate the hurts of our world. a net of jewels, each a precious being, an infinite mirror to see ourselves. Interlinked is the rising wall of suffering. Interlinked are the efforts to surmount walls. Interlinked, we turn the wheel of the Dharma, turning views to see things clearly, turning hearts to know that we are not alone. Like a lotus flower blossoms above muddy water, drawing nutrients from darkest despair, discovering freedom in the midst of constraints. Solidarity Bodhisattvas recite the mantra. Shujo muhen seigando. Beings are innumerable. We vow to liberate all. Bonno mujin seigandam. Delusions are inexhaustible. We vow to eliminate them all. Omom muryo seigangak. Dharma gates are boundless. We vow to study them all. Butsudo mujo seiganjo. Buddha's path is unsurpassable. We vow to actualize it. Shiju seigammo fuju suru kudoku. We dedicate the merits of reciting the 4 great vows of the Bodhisattva to Tanabe Sachiko Angela Valeria Martinez. Sachiko Tanabe, Japanese Peruvian 11-year-old, drowned in water at the Crystal City internment camp, Texas, August 1944. Angela Valeria Martinez, El Salvadoran 23-month-old, drowned in the Rio Grande with her father during a border crossing in June 2019. Oshima Kane Saburo Rolando Chavez. Kane Saburo Oshima, 58-year-old, shot by guards in the back of the head at the fence at the Fort Sill internment camp in Oklahoma, May 1942, leaving behind his wife and 11 children in Kona, Hawaii. Rolando Chavez, Guatemalan, 26-year-old, shot in the head by Border Patrol, southwest of Tucson, Arizona, in October 2017. Suzuki H. Julio Castro Garrido. H. Suzuki, 47-year-old, died of tuberculosis in August 1944, one of hundreds of Japanese Americans who died in the World War II camps, succumbing to disease outbreaks. Julio Castro Garrido, Cuban, 28-year-old, died of the flu and pneumonia at the ICE-run Stewart Detention Center, Georgia, in January 2018. We request the spirits of those who have come before us to be present, to be with us, to guide us, guiding us in our time, a moment of fear, of anxiety, of illness, and of death. The Buddha taught that the liberation is like a bird taking flight, with one wing propelled by wisdom and the other wing by compassion. O ancestors, share with us the wisdom to see things clearly, and the compassion to feel each other's pain, to know that we are not alone. For interlinked are our lives, interlinked are our deaths, and interlinked are our karmic destinies. Jiho san shi shi hu shi sombu sa moko sa moko ya oromi. Gail, I think we'll turn things over to you.
Great. Good morning, everyone. I want to introduce our next testimony, and some who've been hearing about his story for a while now, Charles Robert Joseph, who is a father, a husband, a son, and beloved community member. Our organization has been blessed to work closely with Charles, his mother, Alamita, his wife, Shelley, and daughters over the past 8 months in their journey to win freedom for Charles from ICE detention. Charles couldn't be here with us in person, although I heard he might be listening on the phone, which is wonderful, because he's actually getting ready for his release from Mesa Verde ICE Detention Center as we speak. I want to also welcome his wife, Shelley, who is viewing us either through Facebook Live or Zoom, and to express our collective joy and gratitude for his release. While we celebrate his release and reunion with his family, we also know his fight for liberation continues until he gets a full pardon from Governor Newsom. But now he'll be able to continue that from the safety of his home. So in lieu of having him live, we were able to record a reflection from Charles that I will be playing for you. So give me a minute to get that set up.
I come from Fiji, an island nation in the South Pacific, the size of Hawaii, where we greet each other with the same bula. So bula to all. My name is Charles Joseph, and I am a father to 4 beautiful daughters, Leah, Janisha, Hope, and Carly. I've been married now for 13 years to a U.S. citizen. I'm half Indian and half Fijian, where in Fiji, it's like being black and white during the slavery times. And this plagued my childhood with prejudice, so I know what it means to be seen as different and to be treated worse than others. I experienced this injustice in the justice system. I was convicted of second-degree robbery and sentenced to 13 years in prison. 3 years for the robbery and 10 years for the possession of the firearm. A heavy price for the $200 I had taken. I had never been convicted of a prior gun crime, but they gave me the maximum sentence, which I ended up doing 12 years. I have come across many people in prison with unfitting sentences. All of them are minorities, especially black and brown Americans. They make up 85% of the population in every prison yard I've been on. I was released from CDCR in May 17, 2019, but never made it out the gate. Private security transport came into the prison and cuffed me up. I arrived in Mesa Verde detention on May 18th. I'm in Dorm C, and the population here is 85% Hispanic. I feel black and brown America lives in disadvantage. From the beginning of their lives, they are missing one parent, to the awaiting stereotype and prejudice that is stuck to them, like the pigment on their skin. There has to be change. We are all essential and important pieces in society, family, and in this human existence. For over 9 years while I was incarcerated, I participated in Native American sacred sweat lodge ceremonies, and they always speak of the oneness. We are linked. We are relatives. I also learned that in order to cure emotion illness, one must grow strong spiritually. And being a part of their ancient indigenous ceremonies provided me nourishment my spirit needed. As I began to grow, I seen the importance of action. So I took initiative, building myself and my community. I taught music and art. I volunteered my energy for charity events like Special Olympics, to community building sports activities like football. Being separated in a cage from loved ones is extremely emotional, but I'm thankful the Creator has guided my footsteps and allowed me to feel blessed. I also have a pardon application in the governor's office pending. This will keep me here with my family and assist in ending my fight to show my change and work towards being a citizen in a country that I've been in since I was 14 years old. I appreciate you all for your time and listening to my story. Much respect and much love. Charles Joseph.
And now I'd like to welcome Francisco for a song.
And each from our own place we could sing together. We are the liberation for which we wait. Now is the time. Esta es la hora. We are the liberation for which we wait. Now is the time. Esta es la hora. Now is the time. Esta es la hora. We are the liberation for which we wait. Now is the time. Esta es la hora. Now is the time. Esta es la hora. This will be our musical refrain, and we will sing it at moments when it comes up.
I'd like to introduce Sheikh Jameel Besada, who is a native Angelino and currently serves as the Associate Religious Director at the Islamic Society of Corona Norco in the Inland Empire. He's a seminary instructor with the Institute of Knowledge and an associate chaplain serving the Muslim student community at Cal State University of Long Beach. Sheikh Besada has been a member of the board of Interfaith Movement for Human Integrity since 2019, and he brings his background in migration studies and his experience of having members of his own family who have been both immigrants and incarcerated, which drives his passion for this work. Thank you, Sheikh Besada.
Thank you, Reverend Deborah. In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful, we ask him in the entirety of his mercy and his blessings to bless this gathering, to bless the people in this gathering, and to help our brothers and sisters all over the world who are struggling to make a living by migrating to other countries and other nations, and to help our brothers and sisters that are currently incarcerated, whether in the penitentiary system or in the immigration system. We ask God to bring for them a swift justice. In the tradition of Islam, it is reported that the Prophet Muhammad said that God created Adam in his own image. And scholars of our tradition have debated as to what does that mean? Does that mean that Adam looks like God? Does it mean that Adam has certain qualities of God? And by and large, the understanding seems to be that when God created Adam, he enabled Adam with some of God's attributes, meaning the ability to see and the ability to hear. And although these attributes in their most perfect manifestation belong solely to God alone, we as humans, no doubt, still possess some of these qualities of the ability to see and the ability to hear. And also from God's qualities that we have is the quality of mercy and the quality of pursuing justice. We know that God in his infinite mercy and his infinite forgiveness can take a person who has been sinning for an entire lifetime, and in an instant, if that person is sincere and asks for God's forgiveness, that a lifetime of sin and a lifetime of disobeying God can be immediately forgiven. We juxtapose that, however, to our man-made system of law, where an individual could be found guilty of committing a crime that took merely seconds and yet sentenced to a lifetime of punishment and a lifetime of incarceration. And when we strive as the creation of God to embody God's attributes of forgiveness and mercy and justice, we fall short, unfortunately, as a race when it comes to inculcating and imbibing this particular aspect of God's creation, his mercy and his compassion and his forgiveness. There's a statement by one of our, the second caliph in our tradition, Umar ibn al-Khattab, who said that it is actually better to let a guilty man go free than to punish an innocent man. We, unfortunately, in our criminal justice system have taken it upon ourselves to throw people in jail just in case they may have done something. And as we saw just now with the statement of Charles Joseph, that a crime that was perpetrated for what we would consider to be a very trivial amount, unfortunately, he has paid a very, very steep price for. And as the creation of God and as people of faith, we should take a look upon ourselves and actually reflect for a moment. How do we imbibe these qualities of God's mercy and forgiveness and justice? Yes, it is in our nature to want to pursue justice, but it is also in our nature to want to pursue compassion and to pursue mercy and to pursue forgiveness as well. So, brothers and sisters, take a look at how we are not only living by these standards in our day-to-day lives with our friends and our families and our colleagues, but let's take a look at how us and our representatives in government and how our government as a whole is falling short on what we should have been doing from the first place, is by living and imbibing these qualities of God with mercy, with compassion, and with forgiveness. So in the name of God, we ask that he bestow his mercy and his forgiveness and his compassion upon all of us here today and upon our brothers and sisters that are incarcerated, to allow us to imbibe his true quality of justice, because there is no one that is more just than God. There is no one that is more merciful than God or more compassionate than God. And we, as an imperfect creation, we struggle to imbibe these perfect qualities of God. So we ask him to make our roles as stewards on this earth easy, as stewards of one another, as caretakers and guardians of our brothers and sisters. And we ask him to send his peace and blessings upon all of us during this very, very difficult time in society and all over the world. And I leave you with the greeting of peace in Islam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Thank you, Reverend Deborah.
Thank you so much.
Good morning to everyone. I want to, at this time, and I hope he's online, to introduce Dwayne Dixon. Dwayne, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes. Anyway, Dwayne is currently working with a couple of organizations that are committed to ending life without parole. He's worked with FUEL, that is Families United to End Life, and the Fair Trans Project. He's also worked with ARC, the Anti-Recidivism Coalition, again, which focuses on lifers. So I want.
Yeah, he brought in some pine cones.
Pardon? So I want to introduce to you Dwayne Dixon. Dwayne?
Yeah, I'm unmuted. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. I'm sorry about that. I'm sitting up here. Peace to you, Larry. That's my brother from LAMCC, Lincoln Memorial Congregational Church. I'm sitting here looking at a coffee cup that I was drinking coffee out of, and it says, "Faith is being sure of what we hope for, and certain of what we do not see." Right? Having faith. And I got two brothers just came home from prison after serving an LWOP, life without the possibility of parole. They was members of the their wives and members of FUEL, Friends United, and life without the possibility of parole. Their sentence was commuted because the program that they was exemplifying in prison, no write-ups, no disciplinary chronicles against them. They had so many laudatory chronicles in their C file. I mean, the governor could not but consider them for release, and they came home. Stephen Green and Candace's husband. I got a baby brother serving 110 years of life in prison under California 3 strikes law. Two other individuals I know doing 250 years of prison. That's a LWOP. That's a life without the possibility of parole sentence right there. My brother's only crime was bank robbery, robbing a bank with a note. Not a firearm, just a note. He had 4 consecutive life sentences totaling to 100 years, plus 2 5-year enhancements, totaling to like 110 years. So I'll stay involved in what I'm doing because of and hope that we can get his sentence commuted. Also, I'm on C number, H number, P number, G number, and I just charged my last number in 2003, and I'll say, man, I'm never going back. So I stay involved with these nonprofit organizations like ARC, Anti-Recidivism Coalition, Fair Chance Project, a New Life Reentry Program, Amity Foundation, Beacon House, Hollywood Reentry. That's where my fellow comrades is housed at right now. And I go there and I speak with them about the transition they're making from prison down to the street. From prison to the street is a whole different kind of like way of life, because now you have to wash your own clothes or pay your own rent, pay your utilities, buy your gas money, get your driver license, get your California ID, your true identity back, first and foremost, in a social security card, get a job. It's a lot of responsibility that falls upon you upon your release from prison. I got friends that's still incarcerated on the streets because they're immigrants. They can't get status to become employed because they have no right to work. And they was released from prison to California because Korea didn't want them back. Philippines didn't want them back, so they couldn't help but release them back to California. And then a halfway house serving time in prison because they cannot get a job. So that's a complicated uphill battle. We got to fight also with immigrants coming home from prison to California, not being able to be gainfully employed. So it's a lot of little different things. And then with this coronavirus, I mean, families are breaking apart. Husband and wives are falling out. The kids are running rampant on the street because they're tired of being at home. I mean, I don't know if it's a conspiracy by the government to kind of like divide and conquer, but it's a lot of transversities. I mean, a lot of things that's going on in our community that we have no idea. We just got so much. We give us so much to fight for, and we fight on this issue, and then we got 7 other issues you still got to fight for. So now it's like, I like the fact that we have like a multicultural, multi-religious congregation right here on this line right now, because everybody have their own objective in mind. My objective right now is seeing my brother come home from prison after he's been gone for 17 years, and I've been taking care of him for the past 16. And it's like, wow, it's no. So anyway, the LWOP, man, my boys that came home after serving life without the possibility of parole had their sentence commuted because they were serving a very, very, you know, a good program in prison. And I suggest that to anybody and everybody I commute with, you know, I conversate with from through letters or for phone calls. I have one friend who was incarcerated, Gary John, as a minor. He's qualified for federal murder law. They saying it's not law. So he's backed up from coming home because of the courts is closed down. He should have been home like in February. But because of the coronavirus, the courts are shut down, so he won't be able to go back to court until hopefully May, June, July, before he's found suitable for release and come home. So I don't know. They use very manipulative. I mean, with the coronavirus, I don't believe in this. You know, it's something else. It's ridiculous.
Okay, Dwayne.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing with us.
Yeah.
And we are prayerful for your brother and brothers who we hope will get home.
Yeah. I got books of stamps and. Okay, go ahead, Larry. Sorry about that.
Thank you. Hebrew text as well as in the New Testament text. Originally from the Hebrew text, Isaiah chapter 61, verse 1. If I could just read that to you. It says that the Spirit of the Lord God is upon me because the Lord has anointed me to bring good tidings to the afflicted or to the poor. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives and the opening of the prison for those who are bound. In the Christian tradition, Jesus went into the synagogue and he picked up the scroll and read from the prophet Isaiah. Some scholars say second Isaiah or Isaiah of Jerusalem. And Jesus rehearses or reads these same words that are found in Isaiah chapter 61. And from the Christian perspective, it defines the mission of Jesus. And ultimately, the mission of Jesus is liberation and freedom for the oppressed. And also liberation and freedom for the poor. Now, the question that is still operative in Christian circles is whether or not Jesus meant this in a spiritual way or in a material way. Unfortunately, sadly and unfortunately, in many Christian circles, this text is interpreted to be applied in simply a spiritual sense. That is, the liberation of the poor is those who are poor in spirit, and not the material poor. The same would be true about freedom of the prisoners. It's often interpreted as in a spiritual sense that Jesus meant the liberation of those who are enslaved by personal sin or by the human fault or by their self-centeredness. But I beg to differ, and I think this text really calls for the material blessings upon the poor and also the physical and material freedom of the prisoners. And unfortunately, this text is not found or even mentioned. I've very seldom heard this text actually preached in a Christian congregation as it relates to freedom for the incarcerated or freedom for the prisoners. And I think this is precisely what Jesus is speaking about, is that he's given hope to those who are without hope, those who are incarcerated, those who have been fallen, if you will, under the control of the empire. Of course, in his day, it was the Roman Empire. In our day, it's the American legal system. It is a system that is driven by a culture of punishment. And we see this as evidenced by the death sentence and also by life without parole, which is called basically the second death. In either case, it is the denial of hope to people. It's to say to them that they are not worth redeeming, or that they are basically unredeemable. Life without parole is a second death. This is dear to me because I have a brother, my oldest brother, have now served 40 years in Angola State Prison in Louisiana. And in the state of Louisiana, when you are given life without parole, it means just that. Only on the limited exceptions is a person set free, and that will necessitate a pardon or clemency by the governor. But our task, I believe, in the faith communities is to fight for the freedom of prisoners, that every human person has dignity, has value, and has worth, regardless to what he or she has done. And so this passage for me is really about hope. It's about holding out hope, and it's about holding out redemption and the possibility for restoration. Unfortunately, our country and our American legal system believes that punishment is the answer. Well, as a Christian, and then from the standpoint of Jesus, everyone has the potential of being redeemed, and that there is something within the human being that if in fact he or she is properly addressed and they have proper treatment, proper care that our prisons do not give, people can be restored, they can be returned back to life, and they can be contributors to society. In contrast to our American legal system, and I'll close with this, is that we need to learn and take an example from the European courts. You look at examples like in Norway, Denmark, Finland, and even Germany. There are no life without paroles. And even if that a person is sentenced to life in some of those places, life is no more than 15 to 20 years at a maximum. This gives people hope. And this is clearly articulated in a court decision that was made in 2013. And a judge, Forday, in his conjoining opinion, wrote this. He says this: hope is an important aspect of the human person. Those who commit the most abhorrent and egregious acts and who inflict untold suffering upon others, nevertheless retain their fundamental humanity and carry within themselves the capacity to change. To deny them the experience of hope would be to deny a fundamental aspect of their humanity, and to deny that would be degrading. I hope that we would move from this country from a punitive culture to a culture that is redemptive and a culture that believes in restoration of human beings. For none of us are free until all of us are free. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Larry. That was Reverend Larry Foy. He is part of our wonderful staff with Interfaith Movement for Human Integrity. He is serving as an organizing and coordinator for Justice Not Jails, which is in LA. And as you can see, Larry's passion for his work stems from a lot of experience. Thank you, Larry, for reminding us about hope and redemption.
I'd like to sing None of Us Are Free, but let's sing our musical refrain all together from the one heart, that we are united, making this a reality. We are the liberation for which we wait. Now is the time. Esta es la hora. Now is the time. Esta es la hora. Together. We are the liberation for which we wait. Now is the time. Esta es la hora. Now is the time. Esta es la hora.
So now I would like to introduce our next testimony, Nia Norn. Nia Norn is a community advocate for the Immigrant Rights Program at Advancing Justice Asian Law Caucus. Her work involves interacting with organizations, lawmakers, communities to help advance and implement legislation, inform affected community members, and represent Advancing Justice Asian Law Caucus in coalition spaces. Nia is a trained substance abuse counselor and is currently pursuing a degree in sociology at San Francisco State University. She serves as a volunteer with the Survived and Punished Coalition and is a council member for Asian Prisoner Support Committee, supporting the release of incarcerated domestic violence and sexual assault survivors and immigrants facing deportation. I've personally been blessed by Nia's leadership, her friendship, and witnessing her tireless fight for others. So welcome, Nia.
Thank you, Gayla. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Gayla, again for the introduction. I hope everyone is taking good care of themselves. So my journey, my story, it's filled with hardship, I'm sure, as people can relate, as being the immigrant, especially being a daughter of refugees. I, along with over 1 million Southeast Asian refugees at that time, resettled in the United States, which is to be considered one of the largest resettlements in history. That was after the genocide in Cambodia, the war in Vietnam. And I came to the US with my mom as a young child, and then my mother as being a survivor of domestic violence, a sexual assault survivor. It really compounded a lot of trauma for her, and as well as my stepfather, who my mother met shortly thereafter. He was a Vietnam veteran during the war. And for myself, being an eldest, I grew up in domestic violence, not being able to have role models there that were there for me. And unfortunately, I couldn't identify with my culture or being an American new to this country. So at a young age, I ended up being involved in a very abusive relationship with a man that was twice my age. And unfortunately, with that relationship, it led to the death of my victim. My boyfriend at that time was jealous that I found interest in another person. Therefore, in his jealous rage, he ended up killing my victim. And he said if I was to leave him or told anybody about it, that he would kill me and my family. I spent the next 3 years with him, fearing for my life. The abuse escalated, but fortunately for me, I was able to go to the police and seek support. But unbeknownst to me that I ended up being arrested and charged for the murder of my victim. The judge blamed me for my boyfriend's behavior, that I was responsible for it. Anything that I said was that time was used against me. So barely by the age of 20 years old, I was sentenced to 28 years to life without parole. And in prison, majority of women inside are domestic violence survivors or sexual assault survivors, even before they entered prison. Imagine being placed in a system that essentially it continues that cycle of abuse. I felt my time in prison was the prison was doing my abuser's work, continue to isolate and control us, things that we couldn't stay and do in prison. it's very, it causes more trauma for the survivors inside. But fortunately for me, I was able to go through my healing journey in prison and identify and realize that if I did not help myself reach out to others, that I was essentially going to die. Unfortunately for me, I was able to go to parole board. 16 years later, I was afforded the opportunity to be released, but I didn't realize that I was going to be deported because of my conviction. And so on the day of my release, ICE arrested me and picked me up. And it, of course, exacerbated my fear. I will never see my family again, or being able to step foot in the country that's been home to me since I was 5 years old, because I have no family in Cambodia. And fortunately for me, there was a judge that believed in my story, that if I was to be deported, that my abuser's family, the history of him trying to kill me, my family, would jeopardize my life if deported. So I'm offered protection for now, but still I have a final order removal. And all this to share my story, to say that as survivors, as refugees, as immigrants, we are the population that the legal system, which there's no justice in it, and the prison, ICE detention, they're all systems that are created to, again, target the most vulnerable population, to punch those that are, because of their status, their immigration status, poor people of color. And this is what happens. And I'm so really grateful to be out here along with you, because I don't want another person to go through what I went through before my incarceration, during and after, because it can kill a person, destroy families, because families are also doing time with us, having to suffer, and communities are being affected as well. I think we're all intertwined in a way. And again, I'm so very grateful to be here to share my story with you, to connect with you, and also to help free our brothers and sisters that are inside. So that way we can all have the opportunity to be with our loved ones and to thrive instead of just surviving. Thank you.
We are the liberation for which we wait. Now is the time. Esta es la hora. Now is the time. Esta es la hora. We are the liberation for which we wait. Now is the time. Esta es la hora. Now is the time. Esta es la hora.
I just have to say thank you, Nee, for the courage to come and share your story with us. And now it is my pleasure to be able to introduce to you Rabbi Suzanne Singer. She is currently at Temple Bethel in the city of Riverside, California. But she's also known in LA and other regions for her passion of bringing about transformation through social justice, awareness, and action. But what I really want you to know today and share with you is that last year, she worked tirelessly on the campaign against the detention facilities for immigrant children, the children that had been taken away from their parents. Through organizing a faith sign-on letter, she prevented one such facility from being built in the Inland Empire region. And so, Rabbi Singer, I am very happy to have you here today with us.
Thank you so much, Hilda, and thank you for all these amazing testimonies and prayers. So being enslaved is a state of mind as well as a reality, physically. And this year in particular, it's important to ask ourselves, what is stopping us from being expansive and loving toward the stranger? So we're meeting here during the holiday of Passover, And one of the commandments for this holiday is, in every generation, every individual must feel as if he or she came out of Egypt. Two little words, as if, are the key for this holiday. Being able to imagine, to feel, to identify with others. In other words, it should be as though you personally were a slave and went out to freedom and were redeemed. Now, the word in Hebrew for Egypt is Mitzrayim, which literally means from a troubled, tight, and narrow place. So Egypt is not just a place, but a state of mind as well. A Hasidic rabbi from the Jewish mystical tradition says that the truth is that in each and every generation, there is an exodus from Egypt relevant to that generation and all that occurred at the time of the exodus from Egypt. Each person can feel the present exodus from Egypt, and each individual can escape his or her own straits. In every generation, every individual must feel as if he came out of Egypt or she came out of Egypt. The restricted spaces so many of us confront, knowing that true freedom surpasses physical limitations, but is the soul's journey to awakening, to new understanding, growth, expansion, and a gratitude for hope in life like we never felt before. So all of us must ask ourselves, what is our Egypt today? Who is our Pharaoh? How do we continue to be imprisoned in exile within ourselves? What are the ways that we feel enslaved in our own lives? How do we obstruct our own freedom? Are there mental habits, assumptions, places of fear that hold us back? I would like to suggest that many of us are blocked precisely in our ability to feel as if we had been slaves in Egypt. Today's Israelite slaves are those who are escaping from hardship, persecution, violence, like the immigrants we have locked up in Adelanto. That is why there is another commandment during Passover. We are commanded to love the stranger because we were strangers in the land of Egypt. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs discusses how these verses refer not only to our actions, but to our words, thoughts, and emotions. He writes that God wants us to fight the hatred in our hearts, as our inclination at first is not to love the stranger, but to fear or hate him or her. The ethicist Moses Pava writes that the commandment to love the stranger asks us to continually broaden our notion of community, which also forces us to broaden our current ideas of who we are. He observes that to love the stranger, we must break with the status quo. Since the commandment is one that we are always obliged to do, it means that we cannot allow ourselves to be comfortable once we have alleviated one form of oppression, but we must constantly push ourselves to keep going. Aurora Mendelsohn tells us that just as every year we must see ourselves as if we personally left Egypt, so every year we must push ourselves out of our comfort zones and try to embrace new and strange habits of mind. At our Seders, we sing Dayenu, it would have been enough. We list things God did for us for which we are grateful. Taking us out of Egypt, splitting the Red Sea, giving us our Torah, and we sing that it would have been enough. And yes, we are grateful for receiving each gift, but we should not be satisfied. We should finish the refrain and then look to the next step in the struggle, reminding ourselves that there is more for us to do. As Ruth Messenger of the American Jewish World Service writes, if we were to provide food and shelter for everyone, meeting all their basic needs, but not protecting them from discrimination and oppression, it should not be enough. If we were to free people from discrimination and oppression, but not protect their right to free speech, it should not be enough. If we were to protect people's right to free speech, but not release those unjustly jailed, and not allow others access to our country, it should not be enough. If we were to release those unjustly jailed and open our borders to those fleeing oppression, but not free our earth from pollution, it should not be enough. If we were to free our earth of pollution, but not empower all people to be and do and love as they choose, it should not be enough. There is much we can do then to meet human need, to speak truth, to listen to others with compassion, to fight economic injustice, sexism, racism, homophobia, and anti-Semitism, to organize, march, and vote to affirm our values, to volunteer our time and our money, to realize our power to affect change, and to honor our visions more than our fears. In each instance, it will and will not be enough. In each instance, we want to feel grateful, feel blessed, enjoy what we have, and celebrate what we have done. And in each instance, we will then turn our energies to the work that remains, hoping we can do more, not because we are greedy, but because we are hopeful and we remain committed to healing the world. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Amen to that. Thank you. I think one of the things, I just have to share one of the things I really appreciate about working with Interfaith Movement for Human Integrity is this ability to have liturgy that is surrounded by the testimony of people, testimony of their current struggles, and also liberation, as you're about to hear from Carlos Hidalgo. Carlos, I began hearing about Carlos in 2013. He was a man who was detained in Adelanto detention facility. And I was intrigued to hear what he was doing inside the Adelanto immigration facility so that we would get to hear the stories and find out what was happening inside. Carlos, thank you so much for coming today and sharing your story with us.
Well, good morning. Thank you for having me. But first of all, Rabbi, that was put perfectly. I agree with everything you said. I'm born and raised in El Salvador, okay? And having a dream of coming to the United States was something that we always had. And it gave me the opportunity to dream, to come to a place where I could fulfill my dreams and my family. And that's what my mom and dad wanted for us. But unfortunately, on the way over, we were detained. There was a detention that was short-lived. 9 days, held in a detention center with respect, integrity, and later released to go on with our lives, which I said I was pretty successful. I had a real estate business. But unfortunately, something happened 6 years ago where I was detained. I'm off nearly a year and a half in Adelanto. And I got to know the other side that is taking place in this nowadays, where now us immigrants are being criminalized, looked as criminals, just for having the right to dream. And it baffled me. Now thinking that someone's got to know about this. Someone's got to know about what's going on because this cannot be happening. As I saw a lot of people around me in the dorms being abused verbally, physically, in many ways that I was not even comprehending why. During the period of my detention, I tried to help people out, but it was just to be stopped every time I tried to do so. So the more I noticed, and the more stops they were trying to, obstacles to put in front of me, the more I noticed they were trying to do it on purpose. And especially it was all a business. We became one of the highest commodity nowadays, more than drug trafficking, you know? So I couldn't believe it. So while in detention, I was approached at one point with a group called Transformato. Can give us a chance to, you know, get outside help. So finally we communicated and I was able to pass notes, send mail for different names, little pieces of notes behind her hairline when we got a hug, and we became vital to have the outside group advocating for us, being our voices. Because inside, their job, Geo, is to deteriorate you, to bring you down and to make you complacent to where you're at. There are no problems because ICE doesn't get involved. This is Jill's house and they do it the way they want to. And that's what violation is, because they have no regard for who you are, human or even as a detainee. And it's not a detention center. Let me get that very clear. This is a prison based on prison tactics, procedures, and policies from top to bottom. And not willing to spend a dime on your health, on us, for our care, for our well-being. Even now with this COVID-19, it just scares me because I'm afraid that if something were to happen in this detention center, it would be one of the biggest fatalities in one single place. Because even when I was in there, people were getting the common cold and the whole entire dorm will have it a month later. So it's good that we do this kind of meetings and we get the attention of people that can voice it out, because this should not be happening. It should not be happening in this day and age where we have so many advances in technology, but yet the common decency of a human is not even comprehensive. I don't get it. So why do we have to take this when we can all do something about it? So that's why we take part in the meetings, this kind of conversations, because hoping that someone will listen and will help us make a change. The outside advocacy is very important to help this movement because it gives us the voice to put things out there for those that don't know. But it cannot just be once. It has to be a movement, a constant movement that needs to bring awareness to the violation and the atrocity committed to all those people inside there. We owe it to them. It's our moral responsibility to get this moving, but not waste any more time. So, having lived in there for a year and a half, having experienced the atrocity, I tell you, it's hell on earth. I thought it was just the same, but it's hell on earth. Every time you wake up, I used to be in charge of the dorm. In mornings, I would wake up at 2:30, 3 in the morning to help those that needed help with blankets, medical, whatever. But also having the roll call and deportations. So I had to go by 2:30 in the morning, whisper in their ears, and say, roll it up. And the men that were being deported. And at the same time, I realized that's someone who I was helping, whose family and dreams I already know about. And now I know will never be fulfilled. Their way of life is completely destroyed. So eventually I had enough of it. So at one point I put a hunger strike together. And I pushed all I could, communicating to the heads of every ethnic group. In collaboration, we were able to put it for 3 days. But those 3 days, we were united and we can make a difference. But it's not easy because they know that they're supposed to keep us apart. They know that they're supposed to break us down. And if we only detainees, why such a regimented security? Why such a forceful hand when before it was just simply detention and release? Because now it's become a business. It's become a money-making machine that the welfare of a human has become way at the back of the line. We don't matter anymore. So I try to make the awareness as public as I can, whenever I can. And whoever's listening out there, as many people as there are, put it out there that people are being violated every single day from any ethnic background. No matter what it is, we're only dreamers, we're only immigrants with the dream, one common goal, succeed. We don't want our children to have what we had. We want better. And let's face it, we're the piston of this country. We are the motor that moves it. We have to own up to that and worked for it and earned it and have to give us the respect that we deserve. It needs to be done because what's it going to take? How many more people need to die to get that respect? How many more children to be taken from their parents to get that respect? I'm asking that question. Hopefully you can answer within yourself, because to me, it doesn't have to take one. Because all of us have the right to dream and better ourselves. And not just us, but for our families. This company and Geo and ICE have one common goal: to pass the buck to one another. Nobody makes themselves responsible. So they make it very difficult. Geo has such power that in county jail, you're able to call in and get information about a prisoner, someone who's been convicted of a crime, actually committed a crime, and you can download and look at that information. Why not a jail? Why such secrecy? Why such a, forceful hand as to who you want to find out? You're looking for your relative. So why must they hide it from us? Because that's going to be money in their pockets. That if we're able to collaborate and get them out, will no longer be money in their pockets. So they shut you down from the minute you call and tell you cannot have any information. So that's the man we're talking about this. It hasn't been fixed. So please, thank you for inviting me, and I appreciate to all those out there that are listening, and I urge you to please get motivated, get involved, put the word out. I appreciate it. Thank you.
We are the liberation for which we wait. Now is the time. Esta es la hora. Now is the time. Esta es la hora. We are the liberation for which we wait. Now is the time. Esta es la hora. Now is the time. Esta es la hora.
Thank you, everyone. Hello, my name is Miriam Noriega, and I'm the program director here at Interfaith Movement for Human Integrity. This is coming to a close, and of course, any vigil could not be a vigil without announcements, or as here in our organization, we say call to action. But first, I would like for everyone to join me in appreciating our 9 staff that are passionately working with the communities, our faith leaders that we heard from, and the guest speakers as well. So big silent applause to them. Folks like us are working with the most vulnerable and neglected pandemic due to racism and xenophobia. This has been our work before COVID-19, and this will be our work after the pandemic curve flattens. So I hope also that you are ready to be engaged starting today, as of right now. The first thing you can do is join us for Faithful Fridays. This is a day when the community uplifts your moral voice to demand Governor Newsom and ICE to release people who are most vulnerable from prison and immigration detention. Last week, 45,000 people viewed a video we produced and released from immigration detention of Mesa Verde. They shared their plea, COVID-19 will turn detention into death sentence. And there's another video that recently released more concerns from Otay Mesa detention in San Diego. So please, they need our help to spread their voice so that their cry of liberation can be heard. You can visit our toolkit, which is the link on the bottom, bit.ly Faith for Liberation, to see how you can engage and share these videos on social media and share with your congregations. We also invite each and every one of you to get to learn more about our organization's faith-rooted model. In 2 weeks, we will begin a series of training sessions so you can learn how to use your faith values to advocate and how you can engage your congregation. We will be applying this faith-rooted model to 3 policies that our organization has decided to work on. These 3, as you can see, have their own designated training, but we invite you to still join all of them if possible. These policies we have chosen, and they are exactly what we need. We've heard all the testimonies today of the intersection of mass incarceration and immigration, and that's why we chose these policies, because there can be something done, and we need the faith community to mobilize. And in honor of these holy days, that moves us to reflect on our interconnectedness, compassion, mercy, and liberation, we would like you to consider making a donation to our organization. Your financial gift, no matter what the amount, will carry this work forward. And any amount right now is definitely appreciated. We cannot emphasize how much we really appreciate anything. You can make a donation in 2 ways. The first one is by joining our Spring Sustainer Drive. We are looking for 100 new sustainers to make a donation of any amount possible in a monthly manner. You can also make a one-time donation to help strengthen our security net. I'm sorry, to strengthen our safety net. Next slide, please. Our organization provides urgent resources to immigrants who are newly arrived, those who are recently released from detention, and returning citizens. We help them with housing, basic utility expenses, basic needs, travel expenses so they can get home. But as you can imagine, this fund is being used really quickly in these days. So make a one-time donation so you can also help people in this way. And again, any amount is much appreciated in this moment. And finally, faith communities play a big role right now because we are all calling people to check in on them. And I encourage you that in your next phone call, you ask, have you filled out the census? Do you need some help? It is time now that people reach out, especially to these hard to count communities, because everyone counts. So please, it takes all of us to fill out the census and make a better future for tomorrow. Please visit our website. Next slide. To stay informed about all these announcements, to sign up to and subscribe to our newsletter, and you can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter. So now I'll pass it for our closing prayer to Brother John. Thank you.
Hi, Brother John, you're up, and it is my pleasure to introduce you. What you need to know about Brother John is he's the General Counselor for the Missionary Servants of the Most Holy Trinity, a religious order that has been of great support to me in my work in the Inland Empire. They also, in the fall of 2018 through the summer of last year, they were welcoming and helping over 180 women, men, and children as they were released by ICE in the cities of Mecca, in the cities of Coachella. So I've been greatly helped by them, and I am so happy, Brother John, that you can join us today.
Thank you, Miriam, and thank you, Ilda. Now we will gather together in a prayer for our collective future. And as we close today, I invite you to envision a future transformed, a future of liberation. And today we can all attest, because we have heard how that can become reality through our oneness, through our love and respect of one another, and with the help of our distinct yet shared faith. Close your eyes and take a moment to envision that future. And as we pray together, add your faithful commitment and affirmation. Please participate by saying, "Yes, we can," after each statement. Can you envision a world where everyone is restored, everyone is deemed worthy and capable of redemption, rehabilitation, and radical inclusion together?
Yes, we can.
Can you envision a world where everyone has an equal voice and a vote in governance and decision-making over their own lives versus one controlled by the rich and powerful together?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Can you envision a world where justice, compassion, human rights, and humane treatment are extended to every person together?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Can you envision a world where economic systems and societies support the beloved community by fulfilling human needs together?
Yes, we can.
And can you envision a world of joy for everyone, where people have what they need, where they care for one another and one another together?
Yes, we can.
I ask you now to take a moment to envision that world. And in all that we do, may we help shape that world. Can we shape a world where people from all countries and those indigenous to this land are working and learning together, living in safe homes, sharing food, laughter, and conversation together?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Can we shape a world where children are playing, singing, and dancing with their families in the presence of love together?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
And can we shape a world where every person is cherished and treated as sacred together?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
May we shape this future together. May the vision of this future guide our actions each day on the path to freedom.
Thank you.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Brother John, to all of our speakers today, all of our reflectors, our truth tellers, all of you who joined us, our staff, some behind the scenes staff you didn't get to see today, Cecilia and Janet particularly handling all the back end, but thank you for all those who joined us. I want to, Francisco's gonna do a closing song that will sound familiar to many of you. And I just want to share one word of celebration and gratitude to all of you. As Gayla mentioned, we are celebrating the release of Charles Robert Joseph, whose testimony you heard early on in the program. He is being released. It is a liberation miracle that we share this celebration with his family, and I want to share it with all of you because it could not have been done without all of the collective work that each of you took part in, making phone calls, sharing his story. Sometimes we don't know how these releases happen, and it is the work of something greater than all of us put together, and we all do our part. So in San Francisco, we usually end our vigils with a moment of noise, which is a really loud noise making so that the people on the 4th and 5th floor can hear us who are in cells. So I just want to take give you all a moment to celebrate in your own home, in your own place, that we could wave your fingers or make some noise if you'd like, and then Francisco will lead us in the closing song. So thank you so much. Let's give a celebration for the liberation that is happening today and the liberation that is coming forward. Yay!
Noise, where's the light of my heart? I'm gonna let it shine. Little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. I got the light of justice, I'm gonna let it shine. I got the light of justice, I'm gonna let it shine. I got the light of justice, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Yeah, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. En español, esta lucecita tiene que brillar. Esta lucecita tiene que brillar. Esta lucecita tiene que brillar, brillará, brillará, brillará. I got the light of freedom, I'm gonna let it shine. Yeah, I got the light of freedom, I'm gonna let it shine. I've got the light of freedom, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Por todo mi barrio, por todo mi barrio, I'm gonna let it shine. Yeah, por todo mi barrio, tiene que brillar. Por todo mi barrio tiene que brillar, brillará, brillará, brillará. Esta lucecita tiene que brillar. Esta lucecita tiene que brillar. Oh, esta lucecita tiene que brillar, brillará, brillará, brillará. One last time, let's take it away. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Brillará, brillará, brillará. Let it shine, brillará, let it shine. Yeah.